Hi, Deja. How are you doing today?
Doing great, thank you. How are you?
I'm very good. And I came across your content on LinkedIn. You have a newsletter, very interesting one, very informative one. You seem to be you're a very ambitious, smart young lady. You're based in London, I understand,
Yeah.
but you're studying something that is not directly related to AI. I would like to get to have share your story about what you do, where you come from, where you're based, and where you're going in your
Yeah,
journey.
absolutely. That's quite a big one. There's a lot to cover there for sure. But thank you so much for the introduction and for the offer to be on this podcast. I've also been watching your content and I love it. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you. In relation to who I'm, as you said correctly, I'm currently an undergraduate student, sort of pivoting into the space, realizing that I can't necessarily be confined to a 9 to 5, and I really want to have autonomy over my life, but also to help make change in the ways that I see fit. And that was sort of the reason behind Based in Science, which is an organization I created in 2020. So quite a long time ago. And I think since then, it's definitely reinforced the skills I have to be able to talk and communicate and create content and eventually lead my own thing. So Based in Science did incredibly well based off a mentoring scheme I started back in the pandemic when I was quite bored actually, and I wanted to do something and I had an itch to make a change. And I sort of noticed the disparities between sort of the STEM education that exists in Kosovo, which is an incredible country and it's up and coming, but is something that doesn't necessarily have that much attention onto it. And I saw as a very privileged person to have been born in the UK to Kosovo Albanian immigrants, I really wanted to make that difference and contribute back home. And then off the back of that mentoring scheme, I paired about 100 students from Kosovo with about 100 PhD researchers from across the UK. And they
Wow.
actually supported me with my application to university afterwards, which was crazy in terms of the connection. And that really took off and it ended up turning into a proper nonprofit. And in 2021, I had the privilege of meeting the Prime Minister of Kosovo, which is still the most surreal thing I can ever say to this day. And we managed to sort of discuss how STEM education really influences and shapes Kosovo and the importance of it. So I guess off the back of that, then I started university studying initially biochemistry and then realizing that chem was not my favorite. So cell biology became my sole focus. So I have 1 more year left now. And a lot of people say that it doesn't really link to artificial intelligence, but I will say that it actually does, because artificial intelligence is looking at mimicking the human brain artificially, right? And if we don't understand our human brain, how are we going to be able to mimic all the neurons and the interactions that happen in there? So I think the combination of science and tech together is the most powerful thing, and really makes me love the whole concept of interdisciplinary subjects. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where EdvanceAI came out of, a startup accelerator last summer. Been working with quite a few clients right now and just helping them with AI and just spreading the knowledge, because I just really love to help people. So that's
No,
the
but I
goal.
think it's amazing, and I think I was very glad to read the news about the prime minister and how a government, how governments actually should care about STEM education, which is I think that's the future. It's not only, um, I see it as it could have an impact as well on people who are on culture, on arts. It's the way you think. Even when we talk about AI, maybe something we're going to discuss down the line. Because some people are like the founder of Nvidia, or the CEO of Nvidia, is saying, stop learning to code. AI is going to do everything. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think uh, learning how to code is learning how to think. So this can be, it's very important. So let's start with. I would like to start with how the Kosovo government, what is their focus, and where was Kosovo before? Where was STEM education before? Where is it now? How are you guys? Like, I would like to have more details on what your organization is doing and how they are doing and why they're doing it.
Absolutely. So Kosovan government provides support to us in the form of collaborative efforts and having meetings, but we're not directly affiliated with them. So they
Yeah.
have their own entity, but they do have a very good drive in terms of supporting NGOs, particularly those abroad and in the country, which is quite different to other, I guess, communities around the globe, because they don't really focus on those outside coming in as the diaspora. So they have a very special attachment to the diaspora, since we make up a large part of the economy going back home. And so there's a wave of change of immigrants from the outside coming in and supporting. So the government do support in that sense. And they have quite a strong foundation for STEM education, particularly with the private schools across Kosovo, where they're bringing in a new interdisciplinary thinking that will kind of, transform the way students are learning. But on the ground, as with any country, there's always things that could be doing better. And Kosovo doesn't score the highest on the PISA ratings. And I think that's something that really needs to be changed, because about 70% of our population is under 35. So if you can imagine the drive and the passion there, it's absolutely amazing. When I go back home, I genuinely feel a sense of joy to see how fast people are taking up technology, particularly back home. So I think there's so many aspects that haven't been unlocked yet with the curriculum that are stepping forward into that. But we were recently a war-torn country as well. So that's where everything's coming together in collaboration with, international efforts. But I think it's getting better, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the Middle East as well and Kosovo have a lot in common. And when it comes to population, countries that have gone through hard times of war and internal conflicts, and now they are, with their young population, they are actually going very fast and they are embracing technology, research. Maybe there's something that we could be doing together actually between Kosovo and the Middle East. So it would be great to talk after the call. Yeah. So when it comes to AI, you said that biology is related to AI, but even AI can advance certain cancer research. I read somewhere, and I think maybe it was in one of your content pieces, talked about how thanks to AI, we are getting closer to cancer, to solutions or remedies to cancer. How do you think, is there a way we could integrate AI in education? There's a lot of talking about education and AI online, but actually I would like us to take a look at it, hands-on from somebody who involved in the movement on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question, because something I've come to realize is coming into the education space as an external person, as a student, essentially pivoting into this, artificial intelligence is almost made for education in that sense. So I think the actual first use case of AI is education. And there's a book I read recently called Brave New Words by Salman Khan, who's the founder of Khan Academy. Yeah. I did not know this, but he was the first person, aside from the team of OpenAI, to hear about ChatGPT as a release.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so education is actually the first frontal step, and the team of OpenAI immediately saw, they realized that, the way we learn and the way we're going to consume information is directly changed as a result of artificial intelligence. So I think actually the market for education is becoming quite oversaturated with artificial intelligence right now, and everyone is becoming an AI expert, which is great. But I think it's important to see how it's actually fundamentally being integrated and the results that are going to come out at the end of it, if it's actually having the change that we need to. So things like personalized learning, you're going to have a teacher basically in your pocket. That makes people scared if you think about it. Why do we need exams then? Why do we need school at the end of the day? So I think this will fundamentally reset how governments set strategies for curricula. So I think it's moving in a positive direction, considering education systems are outdated.
But do you think it's going to replace teachers or an AI? What would be the best strategy to implement AI?
It's a good question. I don't think we'll have just AI teachers, because it's not reached that level yet, and I don't think it necessarily will be. I think it's a combined approach. It's a human touch that is necessary. So they'll be there as assistants. AI is meant to be a tool. It's not meant to take over, is how I see it, really.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And then when it comes to exams, I think we've already have a problem with assessments. Yeah. I think if we look at assessments from a different perspective, and rather than just having a written exam, having a project-based exam, and we really understand, we will be able to assess where the student gets to use AI, as in real life, right?
Absolutely. It kind of allows you to think more interdisciplinary, in the sense of you're not so stressed at the concept of you have to complete an exam and you get maybe a brain blank because there's too much information overload. It's more like I guess how the Finnish have their education system, where it's more kind of spread out, don't necessarily have a centralized exam system. It's more just to apply to universities. You're thinking more hands-on, practical, and innovatively.
It's like open book exam. Exactly. Actually, I remember when I first got my hands on AI a couple of years ago, I was like, wow, now I realize that being able to ask the right questions is actually more important than anything else, because sometimes you realize that you don't know how to ask, you don't know how to ask the right question to get from point A to point B.
Absolutely. So that is one really key thing. I think that's where the concept of having a humanities-based degree may actually get you further in the world of artificial intelligence, because you can write your thoughts eloquently. Whereas somebody who does coding perhaps will be very good in the back end, but can they prompt engineer effectively? That's the question.
Which makes us also think about linguistics and how we use language and communicate, and the importance of language as well. So tell us, how do you do, what does EdvanceAI do, and how do you do it, and how you assess, or help companies integrate AI, and why is it important even?
Yeah, so those are great questions. So I initially started in the sort of ed tech space and supporting ed techs with more automation solutions. So helping them kind of take a task that they do very monotonously and then turning it into something that's a little simpler, improving productivity. And that did pretty well. But I started to notice that ed techs knew artificial intelligence more than the other fields did, and a lot faster. So then I thought of kind of pivoting a little bit and changing it so that I'm providing all the skills I learned in the education sector and giving education to other companies that are not necessarily in the field of education or ed techs, by supporting them more fundamentally and saying exactly what we just discussed, how to prompt engineer and how to understand that artificial intelligence is a tool to enhance productivity as opposed to replacing you. And I think there's so many career paths now in big corps, especially, where they don't necessarily have people that fit the skill for prompt engineering, but then everyone that does fit the skill wants to be an entrepreneur. So it's like, how do we upskill an entire generation of people to make them fit that gap? And that's exactly what we offer as part of Advance. So initially starting off with workshops in big corp, and then kind of going into actually more fundamental consultancy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, stuff like chatbots or internal capacity building education using AI, internal for your employees. There are so many things that can be doing with AI at a very much cheaper cost as well.
Absolutely. Just making things more productive and, reducing the amount of hours people have to spend writing those emails and those documents, just making it more exciting and a joy to go back to work, I think, is what I really want to see.
Aren't there some people, or not, I was going to say decision makers, but don't you think some people are afraid of losing their jobs to AI? Have you come across anyone, and what do you tell them? What do you tell them?
I actually really have. There's a lot of people who are kind of in two minds about it. Some are like, oh my God, this is the best thing to ever happen to us ever. And the other half are like, okay, well, I'm made redundant now. There's no point. So I think to them, I would say just identify why you're scared about artificial intelligence, and almost sit down with yourself and understand why those fears are there and see how you can move forward from it. Because if you could just be having analysis paralysis, to be honest, where you're just so overloaded by every piece of information, you don't know where to start. So that's where I'd say, like, where do you start?
Yeah, where do you start?
It's a good question. Figure out what you do and what skills you have right now. So if you're working, for example, in finance and you send out emails every single day, think about how you could use that time that you use to send out emails to learn a new tool, and how that tool could support you in actually doing the tasks that you do in your work every day. So just having that slightly curious mind to go out there and make a link that doesn't necessarily exist before to make a change.
Right. Okay. So as for small businesses, I can imagine that entrepreneurs or, startups that are starting with like very limited resources, obviously using AI would make a lot of sense for them.
Yeah.
How can the areas where they can automate, or what are the areas where they could have cost-efficient strategies? Which areas are we talking about? Where do you look?
Yeah. So I think the first one initially was content creation. So I think it's really important to position yourself, especially if you're a founder or someone working in the C-suite level, to have a brand out there and to make sure you're producing the right content. That is where
at scale, I guess.
Yeah, at scale, absolutely. And that's where these different tools can come in. Claude is the best for writing. So if you need to kind of batch create content in that sense, you can definitely utilize that. Of course, the human element has to always be there, but
so it's better than ChatGPT. Are you saying
for writing?
Absolutely.
For
writing, okay.
Yeah. I think it's based on the data it's trained on. It just writes more eloquently. So for content creation, absolutely. Then I would also say for lead generation. So I guess every business survives on the fact that it's going to attract new clients, new customers. The best way to automate that is through having a tool stack to help you reach out to other clients via artificial intelligence. So it could be combining multiple tools, getting different links together, not necessarily using coding at all. And then also just kind of onboarding new members, customer service, all of that can be totally automated with artificial intelligence. So it depends on the level of AI you want integrated and how quickly you can manage that.
That's very interesting. And when it comes to leads, so what are you looking at?
So lead, this would be, you can connect stacks. So there's these platforms that are no code, low code, like Zapier, Make, where you can essentially take components and build a stack, and then it will essentially answer emails for you or reach out on your behalf, just about connecting the right tools together.
That's super interesting. Yeah, Zapier, I think they're blowing up and they're doing a great job.
Definitely.
It's an American startup or British startup.
I'm not sure actually. I believe it might be American to my knowledge, but I love the fact that they really capitalize, I guess, on the fact that we don't need coding necessarily anymore, and anyone can be an automation expert provided you know fundamentally how it works for the business. So it's not a skill that's really difficult to learn, but you need to be kind of on the ball with it for sure.
Right. That's very interesting. For someone who's been working with a lot of ed tech companies, I've noticed lately that there are many companies that are similar to each other. It feels like they are just a copy of, they're not bringing anything new. Most of them are like maybe creators of educational resources. As a teacher, if the teacher wants to choose the best, like how can we choose the best platform? What should we look at? And and what is the difference between a platform where you can create education resources and OpenAI, for example, going straight to the source?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I think it's something I've been fighting with myself as well to look at, because potentially down the line I don't want to create something that's just another GPT wrapper, because most of them are. Exactly. And I think what you have to do is sort of look at the reviews of that. There's a lot of platforms out there, like EdTech Impact, for example, that will actually analyze the different EdTech companies and see what reviews are they getting, because it's highly dependent on user feedback. And those companies that don't go into schools directly or don't go to the institutions to actually implement their resources, it's just another wrapper, and they just want to make big in the AI boom. So I think it's important to use it yourself. Go out and maybe spend like 30 minutes a week just having a look at all the tools out there. There's other newsletters like Superhuman AI that have an entire section on their newsletter that look at tools, the best tools to use. And they will always review and fact check everything. So that's where I go to see where the best ones are every day in my inbox. But I think it's a point of trialing and testing, to be honest.
That's great. I love the fact that you're sharing with us some of your sources, because I always wonder when I watch one of your videos, I'm like, where does she get all these information from?
Yeah.
So you have Superhuman AI newsletter online or on LinkedIn or?
So there's a website. I found them on LinkedIn initially, and they also newsletter on your email. So they just come into your inbox. And I think out of all the newsletters I've consumed, there's like 20 I get per day in my inbox. Out of all of them, I think that is the best one, because it's just very cohesive, talks about tools, doesn't necessarily have so many ads, because there's a lot of adverts in all of these. So that's one thing that really annoys me. And then also kind of giving you the right information you need. But doing a simple Google search, or even Perplexity, using Perplexity, the AI search engine, that really helps to bring out the best info.
That's like Wikipedia and ChatGPT having a kid. That's what the founder says.
Absolutely. And our search GPT might come in and dethrone Perplexity, but we don't know yet, so we'll see.
These are really crazy times, and I think AI is a game changer anyway, on all levels and everywhere in the world. So what's his name? Sam Altman was saying that soon we'll be able to see multi-billion companies run by a small team, by one person even, thanks to AI.
Definitely. And I think that's the beauty of it. It will simply instill portfolio careers. So I think the concept of a 9-to-5, in my opinion, in the next decade just will not exist anymore, because everyone is going to do mini jobs here and there just to keep themselves happy, especially because productivity will increase and you have more creative freedom to do what you actually want to do. Exactly. So I think there'll be a good landscape shift.
Yeah, and that's why I think entrepreneurship is a good skill to have, and because I can have a future maybe in 50 years from now where you're working as we used to before. You had your trade, you had your like your industry, whether you were a carpenter or whatever, and you're delivering your experience, or you have a skill and you're just selling it for money, and then whenever you wanted to close the shop, you closed it and you could rest, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the way forward, and I think it's the better way, because we'll be fundamentally happier as
Yeah,
humans. I think you will see the rates of happiness genuinely increase purely because you're allowed to have that creative freedom to do what you actually desire, as opposed to what
exactly.
you feel you have to.
Yeah, you get to choose what you work, what you like, and what you're interested in, and what you really want to work on, and you get to choose your own tempo and the you want, and it's going to be competitive, but the market's blue ocean, right? And market is big, and now you're not working only in a local, not operating in a local market. You're online, which means that you're could work
Global.
everywhere.
Definitely. I think that's the beauty of it for sure.
But becoming an entrepreneur actually needs special skills. It takes a lot of discipline to be able to juggle everything. How do you do it? That's one of the big questions marks that I've always had. So you have a newsletter, you have a lot of content, you're a student, and then you also start a company.
Yeah,
What's the
it's
secret?
a lot.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. And I still run a non-profit and I have a student society back in Scotland as well. So everything is all there. But I think I see what
AI.
way, no, actually.
That's
But the way I see it, yeah, the way I see it is more that all of the kind of projects I take on are just extension of my passion. So I don't see this as work. And I think that's exactly what fuels me. It's like motivation from having the discipline of waking up every day with the concept of I need to go out and send this email. I need to reach out to these people for my consultancy, or I need to just text someone. So it's a case of time blocking, being very organized. I have my calendar like scheduled to every minute. So if like a minute is off, it will be a bit difficult to continue. But it's just about organization and realizing that the drive is there and I do want it bad enough. So that's what makes me continue to push forward and not realizing that, I think understanding that no dream can be too big. You can genuinely achieve it because most people don't have the discipline to continue. And I think the key is not motivation, but the discipline for sure.
Discipline and the stamina, maybe.
For sure.
Being
Yeah.
able to wait for your results, like, it's a bit like being a farmer. Right?
Yeah.
You put the seed and then you keep watering, you see nothing till one day you start seeing the reaping the fruits of your work.
Absolutely. It's all delayed gratification and understanding that everything you're doing right now is the biggest risk you could ever take. But then if you leave it too late, then you'll just never want to take this risk. So I think this is the perfect time period as well. I have one more year left of university. I see it going well, but if it doesn't, there's always other opportunities, and not being too attached to the outcome and seeing that as your self-worth, but understanding that you are a whole human and that you can take every sort of failure or win as just another part of you.
You're totally right. And I think it's not about the result. Well, the results, yes, they matter, but you've already won by putting in the work, right? And the work into something that you like.
Definitely. It builds you up as a human. I think I always compare myself to like this time last year. I was so different. I wasn't even in the entrepreneurship space. I had no idea what it meant to even be commercial. And I was just a bit scared to get into it. And then all it took was for one tiny email to get back to me from a business accelerator for women in STEM that just happened. And I thought, let me try it. Sounds fun. And then here I am today. So I do really give most of my kind of hard work to that one moment as well. Most of it is luck too.
I think luck favors the brave, and you strike me as a person who's brave enough and always says maybe instead of saying no.
Yeah.
And you need to be brave enough to maybe jump, right, and try new things.
Absolutely. And that nothing can be stable anyways. It's all going to be tumultuous no matter what career you get into. It's just how risky do you want to be and how bad enough do you want it? It's like whatever it takes mentality.
That's why I wanted to have you on the show, because that is the old mentality was that it's a 9-to-5 job. Safety belt is you got a job and then you got a loan and you bought a house and stuff. But these things are actually dying out.
Yeah.
This is not the reality anymore. And you see it, governments cannot help you. Only you can help you. And you need to be able to adapt, be flexible, and even change careers, no matter how old you are. As you just said, if it doesn't work, I'm just work on something else.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just understanding, having sort of a vision there for your future at the very end, and then reverse engineering and working backwards from it. So you know that you're going to achieve it, even if it's at the very end, like when you're 50 or 40, but these are the times for you to be able to just take loads of risks, try everything, dip in and out, and then just see where you really feel that it works. I feel like it's very intuitive as well.
Exactly. And now with education, I think with AI, AI, internet, YouTube, you can learn any subject pretty quickly. No,
Absolutely. You have a teacher in your pocket.
no, yeah, exactly. Do you feel like going to uni was a waste of time? I know
That's
it's
such
very, maybe you don't want to say it now because you're still there, but what would
I
you
mean,
say to people who say that? Let's put that away.
interesting. I've had this question quite a bit. You'd actually be
All right.
surprised. And what I always say is that it built me up to be able to communicate to other people and to understand how other people think. So it almost stimulated the more empathetic and more flexible and adaptable side of me. Because I think if I were to be at any other university in the rest of the UK, I would be very constrained. I think I would have been the literal flip side of what I am now, going into maybe biotech or research. But it took for me to come to Scotland to a completely different environment, to a 4-year bachelor's as opposed to a 3, and see that actually I like to communicate with people and I'm not someone who wants to be locked up in a lab for like 9 to 7. And that only happened because of university.
Yeah.
And it allowed me to meet my people and to make the best friends and then to kind of have those lifelong connections that will always push you forward. So I don't regret it in any sense.
Well, that was a very good answer, but actually my question was a bit generic. I'll give you an example. So a few months ago, the Egyptian president came out saying that maybe, and to the nation saying that it's probably not a good idea to spend 4 years to get a degree in so that is not gonna land you a job. So you may as well want to learn to code, learn AI in a few months, and then get a job right away. So don't waste your time.
Wow.
I've heard similar, other influencers here in the West saying similar things, and I wanted to get your take on this. What do you think? What would you say to those people? Like, why would I get a loan and get myself in debt, study something for 4 years when I could learn it pretty, and then get into the job market right away?
Wow, yeah. I think to that, I would say it doesn't
I don't have to give an
depend
answer.
on.
I'm just curious.
It's a good. I'm gonna
Now
have to
I
think
put you on the spot.
diplomatically about this. I think for this, I would say it really depends what degree you go into, and it
Yeah.
depends how passionate you are. Because if you genuinely are passionate, I was a very passionate biologist coming into university, and no one could tell me anything. Like if you were telling me go into engineering, go into medicine because it will get you a better career path, I would say no to that because there's a vision there. Some people don't necessarily have that. They go to university for the sake of just going, getting a degree. And I will say that that degree still does matter, but it is quite an old mentality, like you just said, to say that the piece of paper will dictate your life because just like you said, it doesn't anymore.
Yeah.
So I think if you go to university with the mindset of just getting a degree, there really is no point because you're not cultivating the skills you should be. But if you go to university with a passion, but without attaching yourself to a future career and you want to learn and get the skills, absolutely. That's basically what I did. So I think it will work. It just depends on where you lie on the fence.
Yeah, you're totally right. And even some people will get a degree for the status of it. But me as an employer myself, I don't look at degrees actually. I just usually I the skills. I look at whether they can get the job done or not.
Absolutely. And I think university does prove that because it forces you to take extracurriculars alongside, socializing, being away from home, learning the skills that you wouldn't necessarily have learned if you were at home. That's another big thing. It really helps you shape yourself as a human and, growing out there and having the skills to live an autonomous life. But it really depends on what you study, I think, for sure.
All right. That's fair. What are your plans after once you finish your degree? You finish this year or next year?
2025.
2025,
Yeah.
the summer next year.
Yeah. So it's quite a trajectory until then. I have an entire dissertation to write, and I'm linking it in relation to cell biology, how it's being taught across 5 different educational communities across the globe, and how we could augment those with artificial intelligence. They almost didn't get it approved, but it got approved now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Because of the AI element, they were just a bit, suspicious, but that's doing well. And then hopefully going to focus full time on advance, provided that I manage to secure all of the goals and the visions I have for it in the meantime. As I said, I have a year, so it's a good chance for me to build up a team and to start giving workshops and working with even more clients and pushing it out there. So I want to stick as an entrepreneur for now, but let's see.
That's very good. Are you staying in the UK or are you considering any other overseas opportunities?
Yeah, I think for now, what I'm seeing is London. I was always set on New York. I was always like, this is where I want to be just to
Yeah, I
try it
remember you
out.
telling me.
Yeah. So I want to see if I should be doing like a 2-year stint in New York just to try it, or maybe even in Scandinavia somewhere, because I'm really drawn to how their lifestyle is.
Come
Um,
Sweden.
yeah, exactly. Sweden, Denmark, absolutely. So I think I'm not completely attaching myself to anything, seeing where it takes me, but definitely having a base somewhere is good.
Yeah, a true citizen of the world.
Yes, digital nomad, as my dad calls
Digital nomad, exactly. It's even a better term.
it.
Well,
Exactly.
I wish you all the best, Ideja, and thanks for coming on. Where do people find you? If I'm an entrepreneur or I'm running a company, I would like to integrate AI my systems. So can I get in touch with you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is the best bet for that. We have a company page on there, EdvanceAI, or just my personal profile on there. I'm always responding to DMs as quickly as I can. The floods get in
Yeah,
there
it depends on the month of the year. Remember,
slightly.
so
Yeah,
we got in touch, and it would like take weeks.
exactly,
Uh,
exactly. But I think it's getting better in there. So
you
across
probably have an
LinkedIn,
AI working for you now, AI slave.
exactly. There you go. But yeah, LinkedIn is the best bet for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks.
you
Have
for
a day.
having me. Thank you, you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Uh,